Welcome to the JS Self-Care Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, a weekly conversation about self-care, personal development, and all the small decisions we can make to become the best possible versions of ourselves. I am your host, Janelle. I am a social worker, a self-care life coach, and an advocate for the effects of parental substance abuse. I am based out of New York. For more information, visit my website at jsselfcare.org. I want to welcome my new listeners, and I also want to welcome my returning listeners. If you can please share this episode, because there's someone in this world who needs to listen to this episode. I also want to personally thank you for making the JS Self-Care Mind, Body, and Soul podcast part of your weekly routine. I see so many people that do. I truly, truly appreciate you. Today, we will be discussing 5 fears that hold us back from being our best versions of ourselves. Do you fear failure or do you fear succeeding? I want to know. Fear is a powerful force. It can be helpful when we are about to do something stupid. However, it also is very limiting mental blockade that can prevent you from achieving the life you want. Fear can create excuses that seem legitimate enough so that you will stop taking action and you'll go back to your comfort zone, a place we don't need to be. Fears have the power to hold you back from achieving your dreams. Fears can hold you back from relationships. Fears can hold you back from your career. Fears can hold you back from achieving your goals. Our first fear is fear of rejection. The fear of rejection is a powerful fear that often has a far-reaching impact on our lives. Most people experience some nerves when placing themselves in situations that could lead to rejection. But for some people, the fear becomes crippling. This fear can have many underlying causes. An untreated fear of rejection may worsen over time, leaving greater and greater limitations in a sufferer's life. The effects of the fear of rejection, although not every person experiences every impact, the fear of rejection tends to affect our abilities to succeed in a wide range of personal and professional situations. Here are some of the most common fears of rejection. Job interviews. Have you ever felt warm and uncomfortable while waiting to be called for a job interview? Sweaty palms, labored breathing, and increased heart rate and trouble speaking are common symptoms of the fear of rejection. They are also potential reasons for an employer to reject a candidate. Confidence and an air of authority are critical in many positions, and those suffering from this fear often come across as weak and insecure. If you have a fear of rejection, you may also have trouble negotiating a work contract, leaving valuable pay and benefits on the table. Don't do that. Get the money you are worth. Don't let fear cheat you from getting the bag. Another example of fear of rejection is meeting new people. Humans are social creatures, and we are expected to follow basic social necessities in public. Most of the time, idle chatter in the grocery line or at the gym lasts only a few moments, occasionally. However, short conversations lead to lifelong friendships. If you have a fear of rejection, you may feel unable to chat with strangers or even friends of friends. The tendency to keep to yourself could potentially prevent you from making lasting connections with others. The following behaviors are commonly found in people who have a fear of rejection. They reflect a need to compensate for a cover-up of the fear. Passivity. People with a fear of rejection often go out of their way to avoid confrontations. You might refuse to ask for what you want or even to speak up for what you need. A common tendency is to try to simply shut down your own needs or pretend that they don't even matter. The fake and phoniness. Many people who are afraid of rejection, they develop a carefully monitored and scripted way of life, fearing that you will be rejected if you show your true self to the world. You may live a life behind a mask, that makeup I'm talking about. This can make you seem phony and inauthentic to others and may cause a rigid unwillingness to embrace life challenges. You develop people-pleasing behavior. Although it is natural to want to take care of those we love, those who fear rejection often go way too far. You might find it impossible to say no, even when saying yes causes major inconveniences or hardships in your own life. You may take on too much, increasing your own risk for burnout. At the extreme, people-pleasing sometimes turns into enabling the bad behaviors of others. Worried that you will lose the other person, you might make excuses or even assist the person with behaviors you know are dead wrong. You can also develop passive aggressiveness behaviors, uncomfortable showing off their true selves but unable to entirely shut out their own needs. Many people who fear rejection end up behaving in a passive aggressive ways. You might procrastinate, forget to keep promises, complain, and work inefficiently on the projects that you take on. In addition, the fear of rejection often stops us from going after our dreams. Putting yourself out there is frightening for anyone, but if you have a fear of rejection, you may feel paralyzed. Hanging on to the status quo feels safe, even if you are not happy with your current situation. You get into them settling for anything behaviors. Whether you want to travel, write a novel, or ask someone for a date, the fear of rejection may stop you from reaching your full potential. Some of us will avoid rejection at all costs. Many of us will avoid entering into a new relationship or try to meet new amazing people due to fear of rejection. How many of you hate to hear no? If you do, raise your hand. I know I do. My hand is raised. Even married people struggle with rejection. They will avoid approaching their long-time spouse to ask for something due to that fear that the person will say no. Whether you got a fear of your boss declining your request for a raise and or a day off, that fear of rejection, ask anyway. Or you fear that the attractive person won't go on a date with you. Stop allowing the fear of rejection to hinder you from being the best possible version of you. Sometimes the only way you're going to get a raise is if you ask for one. The only way you're going to meet the individual of your dreams is if you ask them out. The only way you are going to get anything in life is if you ask. There may be 1 million no's, but guess what? That thing that is for you will be your yes. If you find that fear of rejection is limiting your life, it may be time to seek out psychotherapy. This can help you explore and better understand some of the underlying contributions to your fear of rejection and find more effective ways to cope with the vulnerability. The second fear is that fear of failure. The fear of failure may also be related to being a perfectionist. Because perfectionists have such high expectations for how they expect things to turn out, they may experience a nagging fear that they won't live up to those often unrealistically high standards. Identifying the fear of failure. The fear of failure may affect people in a variety of ways, which means that it's not always easy to identify. Some of the ways that people may experience the fear of failure include believing that you don't have the skills or knowledge to achieve something. The second one is feeling like you won't be able to achieve your goals. Procrastinating to the point that it affects your performance or ability to finish on time. Telling people that you will probably fail so that expectations of them remain low of you. Underestimating your own abilities to avoid feeling let down. Worrying that imperfections or shortcomings will make other people think less of you. Worrying that you will disappoint others if you fail. In some cases, the fear of failure may cause people to avoid trying altogether because they are so afraid that they will try and not succeed. They simply decide not to try at all in order to prevent potential pain. embarrassment, or disappointment. A fear of failure can have a wide variety of causes. Some potential causes include critical upbringing. People who grow up in a household that are highly critical or unsupportive may be more likely to experience a fear of failure because they felt that they could never live up to their family's expectations during childhood. They may continue to fear making mistakes as adults. Definitions of failure. People often have different definitions of what failure means. For some people, it means not achieving something exactly as they planned. This can create a set of expectations that is very different to live up to. Trauma. People who experience a difficult or even traumatic failure may also be very afraid of repeating that experience in the future. Having a panic attack during a presentation or being ridiculed for your performance, for example, could contribute to feelings of fear. Negative consequences resulting from failure, such as losing a job or not getting into a college, can also risk factors that contribute to the fear of failure. While everyone may be afraid of failing from time to time, it becomes more serious when it inhibits your ability to pursue your goals and achieve the things you want to accomplish in life. A fear of failure can take a toll on a person's belief in their abilities and their motivation to pursue their goals. Low self-esteem. People who fear failure may also engage in negative self-talk or have low self-confidence that makes it difficult to pursue their goals. Poor motivation. When people fear failure, they may also experience a lack of motivation that makes it difficult to get started on projects and work towards goals. When something seems too challenging or involves learning new skills, people may simply give up or refuse to get involved. Self-sabotage. It isn't uncommon for people who fear failure to engage in acts of self-handicapping that undermine their own chances of success. Research has found, for example, that students who fear failing often engage in self-handicapping behaviors that actually limit academic success and perpetuate failure. Shame. The fear of failure often stems from a fear of experiencing shame or embarrassment. Failing can trigger feelings worthlessness, so avoiding trying in the first place can sometimes serve as a way to protect the self from disappointment, regret, and sadness. There are also a number of strategies that you can use to help reduce feelings of fear about failure. Some of these include consider the outcomes. Sometimes thinking about the worst possible outcome and then coming up with a plan for how you'll deal with it can help reduce anxiety when you are pursuing your dreams and goals. Focus on the things you can control instead of worrying about aspects of the situation that you have no power over. Focus your energy on things that you can control. Plan ahead. When you are facing a challenge that might trigger your feelings of fear of failing, work on developing alternative plans just in case your initial efforts don't go as planned. Having a plan B or plan C can help you feel less anxious and more secure within yourself. Redefine failure. Changing how you think about failure may also help reduce your feelings of fear. Failure is part of life and can be an important opportunity to learn and acquire new skills. It can certainly be disappointing, but it's important to maintain a healthy perspective towards the potential benefits of failing from time to time. Remember that success is often reached through a series of progressive failures that lead to new information, skills, and strategies. Use positive thinking. Avoid negative self-talks that can undermine your confidence and create feelings of anxiety. Instead, work on thinking more like an optimist to keep your motivation high. I actually embrace this fear, and the reason why I embrace this fear is because I feel every single failure is lessons, and if I succeed at everything, I won't learn how to do it multiple ways. I would just know the way, one way I succeed. As Aaliyah, the R&B singer, said, if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. Boom. There it is. Dust yourself off and try again. I am aware that one of the top fears is failures. I also know that there is so many people who won't even try something new unless they're confident they'll win. Just a reminder, failure is normal and it is a part of life, and learning from failure will assist you with the finding success. I guarantee you, when one door closes, guess what? 5 doors will open. Guarantee you. The fear of failure is something that everyone experiences from time to time, but this can become much more problematic when such feelings become persistent. Practice self-compassion and work on taking small steps towards building your confidence and managing your fears. The third fear is the fear of uncertainty. Uncertainty is a part of the human experience. Some people thrive in uncertain times. Others become emotionally paralyzed. The way people respond to uncertainty may depend on how afraid they are of the unknown. If you fear spiders or snakes, it's based on what you've learned. Some of those creatures are venomous and can literally kill you, but not all fears are based on such concrete information. Some fears are based on what you don't know. Take Wall Street, for example. Stock prices plunge, AMC, when investors fear that an event will hurt the economy. A more personal example, the fear of public speaking. Part of the terror many people feel on stage is not knowing how the audience will respond. Fear of the unknown is a basic part of many other anxieties, fears, and phobias. Here are the most common symptoms of the types of phobia. The effects of fear on the body are well known. They include fast heart rate, quick, shallow breathing, tense muscles, feeling of weakness, blood glucose sugar spike. When a threat is short-lived, these symptoms go away quickly. If you feel a near constant fear of the unknown, though it could harm your health. The fear of uncertainty is the fear where you have to step away from your norm. This is the fear that takes you out of your comfortable state. I know what this is, but I don't know what that is going to be. I can stick with this person. At least I know how they're going to treat me. Whether that's treating you like shit, cheating on you, and disrespecting you. The person that is helping your self-esteem go right down the drain. You know that feeling and that person. But meeting someone and learning them is fearful. Step out of your comfort zone and step into being uncomfortable. It will pay off. New relationships, self-esteem on a high. Hey, why not? The fear of uncertainty often prevents you from trying something new and or different. People often worry, what if I don't like it? This fear can prevent people from trying new and improve things differently from the way they've always done it. The fourth fear is the fear of loneliness. Fear of loneliness is not that you are lonely in the moment. It's that you worry about how you're going to feel in the future when you are alone. Fear of loneliness can manifest in several different ways. Fear of living alone or of being at home alone. Worrying about getting separated from a particular person, such as a child or spouse. Fear of being in public without someone you know being with you. Anxious anticipation of being alone during the holiday. Fear of loneliness versus loneliness. It's important to note that there's a distinction between loneliness and the fear of loneliness. Loneliness is the actual state of feeling sad in the moment that you are alone. Fear of loneliness is worry that you're going to be alone at some future point in time, whether in 5 minutes or in old age. Notably, feelings of loneliness can also trigger a fear of loneliness. You might be doing okay reading a book alone in your home, when you start to get lonely. You begin to feel sad that you are alone. Then your mind begins to think that you're always going to be alone or that something bad is going to happen when you are alone. This triggers the fear of loneliness. Fear of loneliness versus separation anxiety. Fear of loneliness has a lot in common with separation and anxiety. In particular, when people feel afraid of being separated from a particular person, it's a lot like separation anxiety disorder. Phobias also fall into the category of anxiety disorders, and you can develop a phobia of loneliness. Symptoms of the fear of loneliness. As you might guess, some of the symptoms of fear of loneliness are similar to anxiety symptoms. Others are more specific to the fear of being alone. Here are some of the most common symptoms: antsy, restless feeling, constantly feeling empty space with TV or other chatter to numb your mind, difficulty breathing, dizziness, dread of being alone and or aging alone, fear of abandonment, fear of strangers, intruders, and or noises, feeling a sense of doom, not standing up for yourself in relationships because you fear losing the person, panic attacks, rapid heart rate, ruminating thoughts about being unloved, ignored, or unwanted, shaking and sweating, spending time with people you don't enjoy just to avoid being alone, trouble concentrating, focusing on thinking clearly, worrying about getting harmed. Sometimes we have a problem that we have to cope with. Other times we have a fear of the problem that's even worse than the problem itself. For example, loneliness is an epidemic that affects many people. It's hard to deal with, but what often is overlooked is the fear of loneliness, which can be just as challenging for many people. It's a real issue, and if you're coping with it, you are definitely not alone. What is fear of loneliness? Fear of loneliness, also called monophobia or autophobia, is essentially a worry about being alone. It's not that you are lonely in the moment, it's that you worry about how you're going to feel in the future when you are alone. Fear of loneliness can manifest in several different forms: fear of living alone and or being at home alone, worrying about getting separated from a particular person, such as a child or spouse, fear of being in public without someone you know being with you, anxious anticipation of being alone during the holiday. Causes of fear of loneliness. What causes the fear of loneliness? For one thing, we often fear re-experiencing something painful that we've already experienced in the past. We don't want to go through that again. Surely don't. Many of us have experienced loneliness and don't want to have to go through it again. Other common causes include excessive screen time, might be linked with fear of loneliness or an inability to be alone. Insecure attachment from childhood that makes you feel like when people aren't around you, that they don't still love you. Unprocessed trauma. You may not want to be alone in your home because something bad has happened to you in a home previously. Well, now, who wants to be lonely? Then I must ask, would you rather be with someone and be unhappy or be alone and be happy? Sometimes some people will stay in toxic relationships or resist living alone due to their fear of loneliness. I used to be afraid of being alone. I would lower my standards. I would disrespect myself just so I won't be alone. I am now okay with being alone until I have the opportunity to find someone who is for me and not against me. I have that much respect for me. I am worthy of being treated like a queen. If you also learn how to tolerate yourself when feeling lonely, you will be able to find ways to keep yourself company, and you will also be able to manage the fear of loneliness. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am worthy of being loved by a loving person. I am okay with being alone. than to be stooping to my lowest level of self-esteem. The fifth fear is the fear of change. We fear change because we can't anticipate the outcome. However, staying put can be riskier than changing. Whether it's in your career or a relationship, you risk being left behind if you don't continue to grow. The paradox is that although we reject uncertainty, we have the skills to change and evolve. Fear is an emotion that gets in the way. We lose clarity about our potential. And we are hardwired to resist uncertainty. Our brain prefers a predictable negative outcome over an uncertain one. On the other hand, our mind is flexible and adaptive. It can be trained to thrive in change. Our fear of change is based on stories, both real and the imagined ones we tell ourselves. We narrate our lives as if they are out of our control. We feel as we are playing a part someone else wrote for us. Your life is not a book written by others. Create your own storyline. The fact that most outcomes are out of your control doesn't mean you can't play a more active role in your life. If you want a different outcome, start by changing your mentality. You are not just a character in your story. You are the author of your life. Certainty feeds our fears. Your brain likes being in control. The hunger for certainty is one of the brain's 5 functions. Uncertainty generates a strong alert response in our limbic system. That's why we worry. That's why we speculate. We rather create a fictional story than not know what will happen. Accepting life's impermanence makes us suffer too. We have a hard time moving on. When a job or a relationship, even the summer is over, we get stuck. We keep rehearsing old stories instead of opening our minds to what's next. Our fear of failure also feeds our aversion to change, but striving for perfectionism can have the opposite effect. When we are under pressure, we make more mistakes. To become the author of your life starts by reframing your relationship with uncertainty, impermanence, and perfectionism. Here are some steps you can use. A chapter is not the book. To start a new chapter in your life, you have to finish one first. Sometimes we resist the end of a particular phrase in our lives. We confuse the chapter with the book. You can write endless stories in your life. Leave room for new chapters. Move on from past stories. Life is like a book. You have to turn the page to start a new chapter. Your storyline is full of choices. When you approach a life as a writer, you start seeing possibilities. You learn to put expectations aside and focus on what you can control. Become the creator of your plot, not just a spectator. Your life is not the product of your circumstances. It's the product of your choices. Embrace being imperfect. The first paragraph is the most difficult. It takes courage to cross the line of uncertainty. The first draft of anything is shit. Every story can be perfected, but first you must write the first draft. You can't control others. Great movie characters, just like real people, have a life of their own. A screenwriter can define their names, lines, and personalities. However, once actors start playing their characters, they will take a life of their own. They follow their instincts, not the script. If you want people to give you their best, set them free. Be ready for unexpected twists. Even the best authors suffer from writer's block. They know they must try something different. The same applies to you. Experiment, change your routine. Go for a walk if you feel stuck. Do something outside your comfort zone. If you want a different outcome, add a plot twist. Failure is not a stop, not a destination. Not every chapter or episode will be successful, and that's okay. You can always write a new one. The beauty of life is that you can course correct. Richard Branson said, in business, if you realize you've made a bad decision, you may change it. Don't feel frustrated about what didn't go your way. Use that energy to write the next chapter of your life book. Decisions are impermanent, just like life. Let go of your manuscript. Let that shit go. We fear the unexpected. However, most surprises in life become great memories. You can't control your life. Write your script one scene at a time. Don't anticipate the whole plot. Bring your ideas to the real world and see what happens. Don't resist the unexpected. Use it as a feedback to live a memorable life. Don't close the door to new chapters. When we want to protect ourselves from uncertainty, we lose awareness of the present moment and we stop enjoying what life gives us. Avoid living on autopilot. Every day is an opportunity to write a new chapter in your life. Stephen King's novel Carrie was rejected by 30 publishers before it saw the light of day, and Carrie is a dope-ass scary movie. Don't give up and enjoy the ride. We all like to be comfortable. The thought of the fear of change makes us feel uncomfortable. We live in a world that changes every day. I know this to be true because when I was growing up, we told time by looking at the street lights. Now we have cell phones. Because we fear change, we resist change. We may talk about how we change ourselves, but do we do the work needed to change our behaviors? Change is changing your mindset. The fear of change can cause us to become stagnant, and we tend to miss out on a lot of really good opportunities in life. After listening to this episode, I want you to tell me what fear you can identify with that you are going to be committed to overcoming. DM me those fears. Social media handles will be in the show notes. While I hope you love listening to and learning from this podcast, it's not meant to be a substitute for mental health treatment. For those of you who are ready to get started by talking to a self-care life coach who can answer all your questions about self-care, I want you to schedule a free consultation at jsselfcare.org. If mental health treatment is needed, please don't hesitate to contact a therapist in your area. Self-care is important and necessary. Take care of you and continue to put you first no matter what. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and share. For daily doses of self-care affirmations and notes to self, make sure you join the JS Self-Care social media tribe on most social media platforms. Social media links will be placed in this episode notes.